Right, okay, let me explain what's happening here. We've got a power match amplifier, we've got an ESP 880, and on the screen you can see two dual display screens, and we've set this up basically showing the optimized input flow and output flow. So if you look on this screen here, you will see the input level coming in to the ESP, which is giving me about minus 14 to 16 clearance in dB. That then passes through to the output stage, which is this block here. That's giving me approximately minus 14 to minus 12 dB clearance, so plenty of headroom on there. That then is passing through into the power match, which is this screen here, and that has been set to sensitivity to give me again some digital clearance and headroom. As you can see there, we've got about 8 dB clearance, so we're not overdriving that. That then passes through the output stage here, and as you can see, we are getting the full power to the amplifier, so that could potentially be 500 watts channel full power output. And we've actually, you can see on here, we've got the limiter values for the RMU, so the limiters aren't being triggered yet, and the gain reduction limiter values for the base module. We've also got a compressor limiter here, which is actually out of circuit. So now if I go to my iPhone and I increase the level, which I shall do now, then we should in theory get to some degree of compression. So give me a second and we'll run this track now. So everything's nice and clear there, and now if you watch the effectively the compressor limiter, which is on this ESP here, so this is the ESP, this is the input block, this is an equalizer block, this is the compressor limiter, and that's passing through on the output stage of the ESP, so that's the orange block there, and that's the green block there, and that's the compressor limiter, and that's the compressor limiter there. So take the iPhone now, and I increase the gain, then as you can see I'm hitting severe gain reduction on the limiter and completely overdriving it. This is on the input of the ESP, and on here you can actually see that the output limiters of the power match are actually adding gain reduction, so that is an overcompressed system. And at this point I would be basically going back to the input stage or my source and pulling it back, so that is definitely overdriven and we're hitting the limiters. If I pull the level back, which is effectively going to be on the iPhone, and now we have a nice clean signal and we have plenty of clearance and tolerance all the way through coming in without any distortion. The other way that you can actually set this up, which is a good way to do it, is actually use a test tone generator, and you can see a stable level come through. At the moment I've removed the blocks from the back of the amplifier. That gives me no audio screaming at the loudspeakers, and at this point now I would continue with the setup and I would adjust effectively the makeup gain in the bass EQ. So if I go to the power match amplifier and I look at the B1 bass module and add the speaker EQ, and then on this one you can now see that we have a 6 dB boost, and that 6 dB boost is achieving me more power to the bass module. If I actually bring this 6 dB makeup gain down, then the end result is I have an underpowered bass system. As you can see on here, you can see that we're way down on the bass. So by adding the makeup gain into the loudspeaker EQ block for the bass module, I was still not clipping the limiter on the output stage. So that's the best way to set it up, and that's all been done with the speaker blocks removed without destroying any loudspeakers. So what I would do now is I would effectively reduce the gain all the way down, like so, put the loudspeaker blocks into the back of the amplifier and have a listen to it, and then I would adjust the makeup gain on the bass to decide whether I need to cut or boost it. So I'll just put the speaker blocks in now. Now what I will do is I will bring the makeup gain so tonally sounds correct. So that's a richer bottom end now, and I also know that it won't clip because I can see the output limiters of the bass channel. So what I'll do next is I will put the tone generator on so you can see the levels coming in. I'll now remove the speaker blocks on the back so we don't rip our heads off. I'll now go back to the sensitivity of the iPhone and see if we get full power. So as you can see on here, this is a 1K tone. I can't see the bass on there because it's obviously out of the frequency range. But if you look on here, this iPhone is actually generating me a fixed tone, and I can see how much clearance I've got on the input stage versus the ESP output stage versus the input here versus the output there. Now obviously because it's a fixed tone it doesn't have the dynamic range, and the music dynamics could be in the order of 6 to 9 or 12 dB, but it gives you a very good reference point. So I could, for example, I can go to the input sensitivity and make it a little bit more sensitive, like so. So that gives me about 13-14 dB of clearance. This is almost the same on here, which is pretty good. So on this tone, these are level matched. I've got enough clearance on there, and I'm almost getting full power on the tone there, so I could use this as a reference, and then I can go back to the music and then I can adjust accordingly. So we'll do that now. So we'll turn off the tone generator. Now we go back to music, and there will be a balance between the tone generator versus the music, which makes common sense, but the point of using the tone generator is to get a uniform structure all the way through, and then you can balance it accordingly. So this should be now a music CD playing, which was referenced off the tone, and we have a similar clearance between the input of the ESP, the output of the ESP, the input of the power match versus the almost the full power on the power match amplifier. So using the tone and the music gives you a very good way of doing it. I would obviously start with the tone generator first, run that gets me close, and then I would manually trim it with the iPhone music. So that's how we do it. Hope you find that helpful. Thanks for watching.